Well, welcome everyone to this episode of Finding Focus. And today I have brought back a wonderful guest because we just had such a great response to him being on the show a few months ago. So I had to bring him back and continue the conversations. And my guest today is Todd Segal, who is a psychic detective and medium who is from Virginia. So I think the weather's a little bit warmer now than the last time we
Yeah,
talked, right?
it it is.
So yeah, thankfully, because that was back in, I think it was still kind of very, very cold where you were, and
Yeah, it was a really cold winter, and next week it's supposed to be in the hundreds,
oh my
so looking
gosh.
forward to that. Mm,
It's been really warm here in Hawaii right now as well, and everybody
yeah,
it's a little bit early. This is still June. It usually doesn't get this hot and humid until August or September for us. So it's been kind of unusual. So I told Todd as we were getting started that we're just going to have a conversation on any topics that kind of come to us as we're having these conversations and as we're just kind of flowing with topics, because there's so much that we know, feel, sense, and that are just going on in the world that I think are worthy of a discussion here today. So, at the end of this too, we always invite our listeners to send us any questions or comments that you have. We'd love to hear from you and incorporate those into our discussions and possibly even future topics and conversations as well. So, anyway, welcome, Todd. Thank you again for being here.
you're welcome. Yeah, ask us anything. We'll talk about popular mechanics or,
Right.
whatever.
Now, the last time you and I talked, you were getting back into windsurfing. How's that going?
Wow, it's going really well. In fact, I went out yesterday and, I was with my girlfriend, and we were at sort of like a bay that's adjacent to the ocean, and there was no wind, and then all of a sudden the wind just picked up out of the blue, and I'm like, and I have my board there set up, and I just went out there, and I've been working on it just about every day almost, because I have a river near me,
Nice.
and I was pretty impressed. I've come a long, long way.
Yeah, you had mentioned you were just getting back started a few months ago. We were talking, or maybe you had been into it, but I can imagine that there's been a lot more advances in what you're doing now since you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, big time, and, it's true that whenever get into a sport or a hobby or something physical, you get beaten up pretty badly in the beginning, you know? I mean, even you in golf, right? It's
Yeah,
physically challenging on the shoulders, the arms, the legs, and that's what I'm going through. I've got skinned knees, skinned elbows. I've been hit by the sail. Sometimes you're going 30, 35 knots.
wow.
You hit something and boom. So I, if you talk to the real experienced people out there, they're like, yeah, you kind of got to go through boot camp in order to get to where you want to be. But I finally have gotten to a comfortable level. And
Nice.
so, yeah, it's a real adventure. It kind of anybody who is into what we do, like as a profession, or whether you're helping, with cases, you need something to offset that. And physical pursuits are very good for that. And I've had those all along since I first started, being a psychic detective. I had all sorts of stuff. When I walk away from a morning of readings, I just have to kind of get out and do something, whether it's motorcycles. I fly planes out here, model planes. I do all sorts of stuff. So it's just very important to have some kind of life besides what you're doing. If you're always doing this, you'll go crazy.
I
Yeah.
I totally agree with you on that and get it because you have to be able to disconnect
Yeah.
from whatever it is that you're doing, and for me, it's getting out on the golf course and hitting balls and chasing after them and trying to find them and hitting them again. And I could totally just disconnect because I'm so focused just on that, and that's all I need to think about. I don't need to think about any of the half a dozen other things that I could be attending to, but I think it's important no matter what you're doing to have
Yeah.
that ability to disconnect.
Yeah, and, especially now for people, I mean, I've been getting really busy with my work, and it's kind of a hard thing. I get through the week and people are like, "Shoot, I didn't make this week. I've gotta go next week." So I've been filling up, like, during the week and then next week, and I had to do some work to my website. I made it a little more privatized now so that people wanting a reading can't push a button and set up a reading. They have to contact me first.
Right. You sent out a little note
Yeah.
about that you changed that. Could you just elaborate so that people who want to connect with you for a reading can understand your process on that?
Yeah, well, the problem is a lot of people don't read what I write on my website. They don't bother to research who I am or what I do, or even listen to a podcast. So, and it can be kind of annoying having to explain everything to people again and again and again. And sometimes they go to one psychic and they think all the psychics are the same.
Right.
And so I'm at a point where I have so many full-time clients that I'd rather do kind of a referral service where, okay, a friend referred me to you, or to at least write to them and ask what they're looking for first.
Right.
A lot of people come to me for missing pets, but I'm not a pet finding service. They don't understand, they think that I can bring the pet back to them. I'm like, "No, I can't do that. You have to look." You probably wouldn't believe how many odd questions I'm asked all the time because people don't have a clue. So, even though it's more work for me, at least screening them and emailing with them can help.
Right. And don't you find then you're able to, I think, better connect with
Yeah,
the people who really truly need your services, want your services, and understand what it is that you offer and how you
yeah,
can assist them. I think that's such a big part, especially for the work we do. It's so personal, you
it is.
know? And so to have that kind of understanding, I think is a benefit on both sides.
Yeah, a lot of people are looking for something that I don't do.
Yeah.
So I'll just kindly tell them, "Yeah, I don't really do that." And then sometimes they get curious about it, they wanna talk, and, I just wanna make sure I'm able to help them and not mislead them, and that I'm not a money service,
Yeah.
putting myself out there for everybody to come to me. I don't want that.
Right. And
I
I think
don't need that, actually.
see, I think that's so important to be able to differentiate and know within who you are and what you could offer. When I was doing professional photography work, it was kind of the same thing. Yeah, I could do all of these different things to a particular degree, but was that what I really wanted to do? No.
Yeah,
So I said, this is what I specialize in. This is, I would tell people, yeah, I could shoot a wedding, but
uh,
and bring in a lot of money that way, but that's not what I wanted to do. I preferred the one-to-one interactions and working with just a few people. So I think it's really important to have those kind of parameters that people
mhm.
understand how you work so that you can be of greater benefit.
Well, your photography is similar to I studied art when I was younger, and I studied so much art that, my family was grooming me to be a professional artist. I would go to school, I'd have art, special art courses, and after school, I had art courses, in another art school. I had art going on everywhere. And finally, when I got to the college level, I went to art college for a semester and that was it. It turned what I enjoyed doing in art into a profession or having
Mhm,
to make a profession out of it. And I just said I didn't want to do that as a profession. I wanted art. I wanted to be able to do art, but not professionally.
mhm.
Having to do it, having to get paid for it. You can photograph weddings, you can do whatever. But the art always comes in handy and it'll come in handy for you too.
You had mentioned something on one of your previous podcasts about the creative abilities, or people that have maybe a bit more of a creative talent or inclination, and how that perhaps influences their intuitive abilities. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit?
So you're taking photographs and you were probably trained, right? You
Yeah.
took classes, stuff like
Yes.
that. And then once you get past all the technicalities of operating equipment, and I know what you go through because I have a friend who's a photographer, and I don't know how he can tell when the light's right and the light is not right, you know?
Yeah.
But he has that ability. So you go past taking a photo to taking the photo the way you see it.
Yeah.
You have an inherent ability to know beforehand what's going to come out the way you want, you know? It's not just like taking a photo and saying, shoot, we need to add another light. You already know that before you get there.
Yeah.
So people who are artists, who are creative, it's not that they have a different mind, but they have an intuitive ability to see things through their artistic training. You know, I was taught to, not see what I paint, but paint the way I see it
Mhm.
later on. Once you get past all of that, I took lots and lots of paintings where, teacher would be like, well, instead of doing the color the way it is, we're just going to use shadow, or we're just going to use the color red, the whole thing. You have to learn how to do it. So it's training your mind to put down on paper what you see. And psychic work I'm not trying to see things, but I see things and then I'm trying to interpret the way I see them.
Right? I love how you put that of being able to see things a little bit differently. And that's actually why the name of this podcast that I do, Finding Focus, came
Yeah.
about. It was a nod to my photography career that I had for many years, and I was a portrait I specialized in portrait photography work. I do landscape work now, but it was because of that and the clients that I had that would come to me for repeats, they might come to me for a headshot and they'd come back bringing their families or whatever, or to get headshots redone again. And they would tell me it's because you have this ability to photograph me in a way that nobody else can. And I realized that, yes, I did have the ability to see something in a landscape or see something in people that I don't know, it was like you said, it was just an intuitive way of looking at them. I would know exactly how to just turn their head at an angle to get them in the best light, to get their face framed so perfectly that would bring them
Yeah.
out. So I think it was just being able to see people from a different angle. That's what it was for me.
Okay, so that's very similar to psychic work see, I always thought people had this ability. So when I was younger and somebody would talk about their uncle or somebody, all of a sudden, without even knowing their uncle, I would see him. I'd see what color hair he had. I'd see his eyes. I'd see, and then, if I focused, I could see, any kind of issues he was having health wise. I'd see what his surroundings were. But I always thought that that was normal.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
isn't
didn't
that
think that yeah, it's like when we talk or people would talk about a city that I never went to and I would see it. And then later on I'd see pictures of it. I'm like, oh, that's what I saw,
yeah.
But I never thought about, okay, hold on, that's a little weird. How did you
Yeah.
do that?
Isn't that
Right.
isn't that interesting because, what we experienced as being maybe normal, we never thought of it as being weird. We didn't realize that not everybody could process or get that kind of information. When I was in the military, I actually was told that I had this ability later on that I could take a problem and I was already working on the solution when others around the table were still trying to get a handle on what was the real problem here.
Uh-huh.
And I'd already worked it out and I didn't think about it, but now I'm realizing that I was not only using my logical sense, but I was using the intuitive information that I just had and putting it all together and arriving at, okay, here's how we need to proceed with this. I just
Mm.
thought it was normal. And I was thinking, what is taking you so long, the others, to realize this? So I've had to dial back a little bit and think, okay, not everybody processes information the same way that I can.
Genetically, we were given this ability. It's hard for people to, kind of process the whole thing, but genetically we were given this is part of our human makeup. This is not, a part of our mind. It's a physical combination of things in our body that enable us to do this. Where did it come from? And you've probably heard me talk about lately where we really come from, because we're not really from here originally.
Go with that. I love
Yeah,
that
I mean,
discussion,
we are, and science can prove that this planet was not always inhabited.
right?
There were some
Right.
bad episodes, and there wasn't life here. So where did we come from?
Yeah, so where did we come from?
And why are people developing, especially children, the way they are right now? They're different. It's not because, well, maybe it's because they're listening to different music. I think there's a DN. It's not because of any kind of forces around us. I think we have kind of like a extended release DNA, which over time will enable us to eventually have the ability to leave our planet, to go other places. We're still kind of in just about from the dark ages to the light ages now. We're really far behind. I mean,
Mhm.
people think we're technically advanced. No,
But
were once way more advanced, but we're kind of the forgotten people. I think, a few million years ago or whatever is when the cutoff happened. I don't know why. I think it was something geographically that changed on the planet. So we're kind of the leftovers from one race that was here.
mhm.
And so if you people are thinking, "Oh, man, that guy's really nuts." But really, in actuality, science will begin to talk about that one day, how none of the pieces they put together fit.
Yeah,
I think of this recent item, what was it? Some kind of a tool, a hammer tool they found in some cave that was millions of years older than anybody who was building that type of tool, anybody who was
yeah,
making that kind of thing. And there's a lot that, well, there was a lot of earth changes that happened that I think eliminated us finding archaeological pieces from long ago.
yeah,
Uh, like I think about Egypt and the pyramids, and I know at one time it was covered in water.
right?
I don't know
Yes.
when, but I
Yeah,
feel oh,
there's studies along those lines that not just Egypt, but other parts of the whole world that
yeah,
that were really covered in water. There's no way that they could have found this ship, pieces of sailing vessels
yeah,
on in these mountain ranges. So
yeah.
how they didn't just wash up there. It really leads you to believe that there was a whole different existence thousands and thousands of years ago. And I find all of that so fascinating that to go back and think about what was life really like on this planet or before we even arrived
I
here.
think of Hawaii too. Came to me, and I kind of think at one time Hawaii was actually part of a bigger landmass.
Yeah, Hawaii, it's so different. Well, Hawaii, talking about other worlds, Hawaii or the area around Hawaii, it's been linked to, the undersea world of Lemuria, if you're familiar
Okay,
with
yeah,
that one. A lot of people think that it is in this area, and that's why there is so much people are drawn here. Oh, I'm getting chicken skin just talking about that,
yeah.
but they really feel that this is where that civilization of Moria existed, was very near here, or actually as part of the Hawaiian Islands or under the Hawaiian Islands, but somewhere in this vicinity.
I mean, even down in Easter Island, they've talked about that too, as
Mhm.
being part of a bigger landmass that once joined South America, was it? Or yeah, somewhere like that. So the more we, I think we already know a lot, but we're going to learn a lot more as time goes by. So what does that have to do with us being psychic? It was a part of our DNA, and there's I've often thought about how many civilizations there are besides our planet. It's thinking about it, can give me a headache.
Mhm.
It's so enormous. So there's, I think, so much life out there that I don't know when we'll discover it. I really don't.
There's a lot of talk lately that and I haven't seen this movie, I don't know if that's what it's about, this movie Disclosure that's out too, that supposedly I've heard about it, but I haven't even read but I just kind of got tangential information that, yeah, it's about trying to let people know that there definitely is more than just us here, just that, as
Oh,
human
yeah.
beings. There's other
Even right here and now.
yeah, there really is. I've had interesting discussions with people that say, "Yeah, they walk among us." You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
they're and they've been here a
Yeah, I've
long
had
time.
experiences like that too. People that really, I wasn't sure where they were from. They had a message for me. I don't know, just, and then I look back and they were just gone. I'm like, that was weird, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, there's so many unexplained things that you just have to say, "It's not black and white."
Yeah.
Who we are and why we're here, we're not alone. We're not there is so much more, and it's mind-boggling, yet it's fascinating to me to think about what else is there. What else is there for us to learn and meet and understand?
Yeah, mediumship teaches you a lot as well. Mediumship it's more than connecting with spirit life. There's never been like a clear picture to me of what exactly goes on in death, but it's a whole other reality, a whole other world. It's not the end. I mean, really the end is right here because we're only alive for a certain amount of time.
Mhm.
That's just a little tiny glimpse in the bucket of, universal time, time on the other side. And the hard part about mediumship is that it's not always the same. There's no formality that you die, you go to this certain place and then you come back and haunt or there it's such a hard thing because every circumstance ends up different.
Mhm.
Or somebody I'm talking to might not be who I thought I was talking to. So it might be a similar person. Why do random people come to us? People want to connect with somebody who just passed. In fact, I was doing that this morning with a client and she was funny because she just sort of she's like, I don't really want to say much, but I'll help you out. I'll just do this reading, you know. It was for her daughter, so it's kind of like, "Yeah, I wanna supervise this," I wanna make sure you give her good advice and this and that. There's just so much, when you think about death, there's so much more to it than we can even imagine. Just like thinking about space, there's way more than we can even imagine.
Yeah, and I
Uh
it's just another evolution. I don't think death is not finite. That in my opinion, it's just we're just evolving from one sense to the next, and then there's another. Uh, It's
Yeah, and life's such a pain in the butt. I mean, this is kinda like hell. I mean,
I've heard, I talked to someone who we were just talking about that, that people who sign up for they're coming to Earth for the experience. And it's a hard experience, but it's like the toughest school that you could ever come to. Yeah, but we volunteer for it. We're here for it because we want to learn some lessons to supposedly take into our next iteration. And it's like the
well, yeah, I talked to my lawyer about it, and he says he can deny me the next couple lifetimes to get a break from it. So, hopefully he's right about that.
I don't know. I'm hoping that, hey, I think this one was not an this was a hard life. Things that I've gone through in this lifetime. I don't even wanna think about what I've gone through in previous lifetimes, but it's like, yeah, okay, I think I've learned a lot this one. Can I just skip the hard one the next time around?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we get to choose, to tell you the truth. There's some people who say, "Well, you get to choose and you're needed for this." I'm like, "Oh, geez." I said, "Well, or you wanted to be with your family and this and that." And I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, we talk about angels and I think all of mine are in rehab. I Nothing makes sense. And
Yeah.
the harder things, you know, the more tragedy you've been through and the more people who are sick around you and you have to go through stuff and you just it's not a depressing thought, but you detach from what's going on.
Mhm.
You detach from the reality of and the misery of all of it. And I noticed that with older people I talk to, much older, and yeah, it kind of like, oh yeah, well, all my friends are gone. My spouse is gone, my parents are gone. You just learn a detachment from the realities of the life, and some of them go on very happy. They're just kind of like, yeah, well, I love watching my afternoon TV and doing my thing but yeah, life, I've had that sensation. I hear so much hard stuff with clients, tragedies, and people who died tragically, and it just puts you in kind of a weird reality. You're like, is this really happening?
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, it's a tough thing.
Yeah, it
Tough,
is.
tough thing when you see this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. How do especially in the work that you do as a psychic detective and dealing with a lot of, I wanna say, heavy stuff, how do you you talked about, we talked about having to detach from things, but how do you stay clear, when dealing with all of
Well,
this?
the other ability that I suppose I was given is tuning things out. So if I'm sitting here and I got 5 minutes before my next client, I just go blank. So it doesn't matter if I, you know, have to, I don't know, go to a doctor later, or if I have to do something, I just go blank for the appointment. And it's a weird thing. It's like immediately when I talk to them, it's like, boom, all the information's like, wow, okay. If I try to do it before I talk to them, it doesn't usually come clear. But when I'm talking to them, it's like, boom, I get
It's there.
information. And I noticed one of your questions or topics that put out there was about spirit guides. And I
Yeah.
don't have a clue. I know people who, yes, use them, very successful mediums and psychics, but what I sense is I don't use any kind of other entity or spirit guides or anything. It's all this information coming to me visually, sometimes, auditory, and then
Mhm.
sometimes by smell.
Yeah.
Stuff's the weirdest thing. I don't know how. It's not that you actually smell it. It's almost like the psychic information is giving you that smell in your nose. And I'm like, that's really weird.
Yeah.
For example, if somebody just, I don't know, if they're looking for something in somebody's house and I'm like, God, it smells moldy. They're like, yeah, it does. Or if there's fresh paint, I'll smell that. Or if I'm doing a mediumship reading and this guy was just nonstop cigar smoker, I'll be,
I've
whoa,
had that. I've had the chain smoker. I mean, I was riding in a
yeah.
car with someone and I felt this presence. There were 2 people there, and I said, "He's chain smoking." There's a guy sitting in the back seat. I had another friend I was riding with, and I said, "There's a guy in the back seat who's chain smoking, but his wife is doing all the talking." He goes, "Oh, I know who that is. That's Aunt so and so and Uncle so and so," because I described what
Uh-huh.
I was sensing, and I said, "Well, he's not saying a word, and
Yeah.
he goes, "Yep, that's the way they were in life, that
Mm.
she
Well,
did all
so
the."
have a lot of yeah, have a lot of habits. So when somebody tries to connect with you in the other life, they can say, "Yeah, that's Kathy."
That's right. So, yeah, I've had
Give
like
them something to remember.
that's right, I know. I've had, smells, the cigarette smoke, I've had perfume, I think other people have had that experience as well, or that I'll get a flower, a garden, something that was associated with them as well, like roses or something like that. So, smells are really profound. That could be.
Yeah. Now, do you do much medium?
You know what? I don't, not because I don't want to. I mean, I don't do it intentionally, let's put it that way. When I do a reading for somebody,
Yeah.
I just say, let's just have whatever comes through. And a lot of times what I get based on the questions that they're wanting answers to, it's more about I do a lot more readings about people want to know about career or life path. Am I on the right path? Where am I going? Or, what am I supposed to be doing now? What about this relationship? Every now and then I will have, someone who's passed but it's not as frequently, and I don't know if it's because that's not where I'm putting my intention on, having a medium experience or not. So I know I can have people and access that, but I don't think, like you said, I think you've talked before that all mediums can be psychics, but not all psychics can be mediums. So I don't know that that's one of the areas that's maybe just not a strength for me, or it's just not developed enough yet, but it's not something that happens frequently. Or maybe it's because maybe I subconsciously am afraid to speak with
Yeah.
the deceased. I think that might be a part of it also.
There's different, mediums are very good at, like, coming right on to the spirits around you or somebody significant. Even before they do the appointment, they'll start picking people up. Problem is, sometimes when we have somebody who has a lot of emotion, like they just lost somebody, and they're so focused on you being able to do a good job for them that, to me, it blocks what I see.
Mhm, mhm.
So sometimes I'll talk to them first. Like I said, some of the best mediumship readings I've done were for people who didn't come to me for a mediumship reading.
Ah, okay.
Those have been more successful because they didn't intend to have it, but it came to them. So I'm sure some mediums have that too. Now, there are some mediums, me included, who also know that the energy of spirits right now is very different than it was because things here affect them too.
Oh, yeah, elaborate on that because that's fascinating.
Well, there's some, and I also kind of believe it too, who will say that, let's say the mindset of Earth right now, the energy around here is not lending to spirit life hanging around here.
Mm.
I've heard other mediums say that too. I think it is true, but we also see people passing in a different manner than we did 50, 60 years ago. And there are people right now. I even spoke to a nurse the other day who agreed with me. People are exiting like crazy right now. They
Interesting.
probably won't put that report on the evening news, but there's a huge part of the population that are going. And we are the when we're in the spirit realm, we are who we were in the living realm too. And because there's been so much like a different mindset with people, they're reading very differently on the other side too, or nothing at all. You don't get anything at all. So the dynamic of reading spirits and people who've passed has changed because life here has changed too. Unnatural causes, lots of problems in their life going on that you can't really explain. Mental illnesses. Right now, dementia's skyrocketed.
Yeah, I've heard
The
that.
highest it's ever been. My family has it, and I talk to everybody every day who has got somebody in their family. It's gone down to 50-year-olds now.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Or I mean, not interesting, but just
Right.
surprising. Yeah,
Yeah.
scary
Yeah.
to think about that. And what's are we just being able to evaluate it better now because of that? Or maybe, 50, 60 years ago, we didn't recognize that that was what was actually happening with someone. We just said, they're mentally ill.
Could be. I think, people don't like me to talk about it, but I think during COVID that brought about this. I think the virus itself did a lot of damage and a
Yeah.
lot of long-term damage that's going beyond what they think it's over. It's not over.
That's the sense that I've been getting too. No, it's not
Yeah.
over. It's not over.
It
It's
yeah, it was not a natural virus. It was made. I mean,
Mhm.
finally, they've released that they have these labs all over the world now that create viruses because it was actually already in this country before it spread from China.
Yeah.
So it didn't just, it was a wonderful fantasy they were sharing with the public, but no, that wasn't the truth.
Yeah.
But anyway, rather than getting all the politics of it, it was a very destructive virus. Lots of tragedies, lots of people lost. But I think it remained in people's systems
Mhm.
for longer than they were told. I mean, still today, talk to a friend who doesn't go out, who doesn't do anything. "Man, I got COVID." I'm like, "From who?" "Well, I don't know, man. I've been home for weeks." It's still in their system, so their immune system goes low, so it comes back. But I do think that that has had long-term effects. Well, some people have had what they call long-term COVID.
Yeah, I know several people who still talk about that or have it.
Very
Yeah.
bad thing, but it also remains in the system undetected, I believe. And that's just my theory as to why so many people they're getting all the same things. They're getting dementia, they're getting liver issues, they're getting stuff in their lymph nodes. And they all get sort of the same sort of things, and it's scary stuff, but
Mm,
it just did a lot of damage, and I think back in 2021 or 22, I said that a third of the population would be going over 5 years.
yeah, scary,
Not that,
scary.
it was just something I saw, and then you and I were talking about this year as
Yeah.
being a real doozy.
Yeah, on so many levels. We were talking and had been talking, that's why I brought it up with you, with other intuitives and even non-proclaimed intuitives that were just saying the last several weeks, I wanna say maybe the last couple of months, just for me personally, my energy just felt low, and I actually just kind of went into this almost reclusive period. I wasn't depressed, there wasn't anything seriously wrong, I wasn't sick, I wasn't totally focused. I didn't really feel like working the business much or getting out much. I still golfed every now and then, but there was just this kind of period where I just felt quiet. I kind of wanted to call it like a quiet time, and it wasn't a self exile type thing, but I just looked back at it and I thought, gosh, I find myself just sitting on the couch watching marathon television shows. I thought, what is wrong with me? I'm just sitting here doing this. Yeah, I'm picking up a whole lot of new recipes, but that's not really what I need to be. Or I'm solving all these crime and murder shows, but that's not what it was so funny. I was talking to other people, the same thing. They were feeling like, yeah, it's just like they were just it was almost simultaneous. We just feel like we've just been kind of coming out of this almost like sleep-induced stage where we really didn't have an explanation. It wasn't anything horribly wrong. It was just there was just a lack of focus and energy. And at first I thought it was just me, but then talking to half a dozen other people, they were like, same thing, but coming coming out of it. So I don't know. I kind of at one point was likening it to, okay, there's solar flare activity because I
Yeah,
did talk to a
yeah.
friend who was a solar forecaster. He's retired. He was a retired weather forecaster and solar forecaster. And he said, yeah, we're in an 11-year cycle where the solar flares that were coming off, he goes, it happens. And this was like the peak of that time frame. So that was, I figured that was part of it. And then during that same time frame, we had some real weather things going on here in Hawaii
Yeah,
as
yeah. I
well
think
between
I watched something. I think I was watching windsurfing out in Maui, and they were getting some pretty destructive weather.
we had
But
well, actually, you know what was so interesting, Todd? The last time we talked was in February of this year, 2026. And I think as we were just finishing up the conversation, you had said that you saw some thunderstorms or immense amount of rainfall coming to Hawaii. And I
yeah,
didn't think too much about it, but literally in March, was when we had this tremendous amount of rain and flooding here in Hawaii that I know made the national news. And then we've also had some other weather following that where we had thunderstorm. This was maybe about a month or so ago. We don't get thunderstorms here very often because the weather's so moderate. But I had a thunderstorm that came through that it literally just sat over the neighborhood here where I lived and it continued for 2 hours. Usually they just come in, a couple of
yeah.
minutes, and then they roll past. This one was for 2 hours, just tremendous thunder and lightning that just kind of shook us all because it was so fierce and it was so unusual. And then we had an earthquake. Well, we've
I
had
was just gonna
rumblings.
ask I was gonna ask you about that because I was gonna ask you if you've had earthquakes, because
We
that's gonna be kind of going on this year. There was
yeah,
a terrible one, Argentina?
yeah,
That
yeah, I think it was Argentina. We've had one here. It was actually occurring on the Big Island, which is what, 200 miles away.
mm,
And so we don't they're not so extreme that we would feel them, but over here on Oahu, I was sitting on my sofa and I thought, "Why is my sofa shaking?" It felt like one of those vibrator,
Yeah,
chairs that's
yeah.
supposed to relax you, and I thought, "Oh, did I hit the button on my reclining sofa here?" And I thought, "Wait a minute, I don't have that feature on my sofa." And I said, because it really felt like it was, vibrating, and then the plantation shutter doors that I have, those started rattling, and I thought, "I think this is an earthquake," because I've only been through one other one in my entire life, and that was probably
There'll be some more. There'll be some
okay,
more.
we feel it. I feel it. So it's just really we've had some unusual, really unusual things happening here in Hawaii, and I know other places in the US between weather and whatnot, but I can't help but think that all of this, the energetics are related to what we're feeling physically as well as what's happening with the earth.
I have some bad feelings about this year just in general. So if you feel that too, it kind of drains your energy. It's kind of like you can't do anything. It's just, so I'm not a doom and gloom person, but I described it to people as like this year is sort of like a tidal wave. It's like uh, the tide is going really low all year. You got
Mhm.
this beautiful long beach, but then all of a sudden in the fall and December, like this big wave comes in. And I kept feeling this and it worries me. It's like, okay, well, I'm not, I don't sit there preaching fear, but I just feel like this year now it's metaphorical. It's not to mean that a tidal wave's coming to Hawaii,
Right.
you know. But it's more metaphorical about the circumstances in the world. I don't know, I'm having a lot of trouble figuring out society lately around me. It's just like when I go out my door, I see, gas prices going up, and then I'm seeing people buying bigger and bigger vehicles. That's, like, really weird.
Right.
I saw so many in town, the whole parking lot was full of these massive, huge SUV vehicles, and I'm like, "I'm sitting on my motorcycle, I can go 150 miles on 10-gallon tank or $10 tank, 2 gal." So, yeah, I'm just seeing society acting really weird too, kind of
There's an
like people are.
energy. Yeah, there's something. Yeah, there's just the energy just feels so strange. I don't wanna say it's negative, but it's strange. It's not a calm type of energy whatsoever. It is what
Yeah.
I'm feeling.
Yeah, so, I kind of spend my time more in touch with I'm out windsurfing, I'm out in the water or, doing some of my hobbies. And because I have to get ready for my next round of readings, either later on or in the morning. And boy, people have been in a real tough state this year.
Are you finding a kind of a theme or a pattern to the types of questions, or have the questions that you have people are wanting readings on, how have those shifted from maybe what you used to receive a few years ago? Have the questions that are posed to you shifted?
It's become more apparent, like you were talking about, talking to people about a relationship issue. And usually those things are pretty straightforward. And, it's like I don't put a lot of thought into it or trying to help them. But lately there's been a theme of partners going completely crazy, restraining orders, can't talk to the person. It's like overnight, it's like they turn from Jekyll to Hyde.
Wow.
So I've seen a lot of that lately where people have just kind of lost their everything. These aren't just, relationships that have just kind of died off. These are relationships with some serious people who just got triggered and lost it.
Mhm.
So, and obviously, when you do this, there's two sides to the story, but not in so many of these cases. Some of these just, I scratch my head like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But I haven't worked on a lot of, well, I've done some, not really detective cases. I guess I've done missing object cases, and found some jewelry for some people that was missing. Did a lot of missing pet cases recently, found 3 cats in, like, 2 weeks. One was not alive, unfortunately.
Uh,
So, it's been pretty much the same stuff. I haven't dealt with, I don't think, very huge crimes lately, just tragedies. Suicides I've dealt with, I don't know. It's just not fun.
is there more of an increase in people seeking this type of guidance? That's one thing that I've noticed is that people
Oh,
are
yeah.
more willing to
Yeah.
seek out a psychic or a psychic medium because they have pretty much exhausted all other means. I had a woman that I had just met at the golf course, and she asked me, she says, "Well, what do you do besides golf?" And I told her, and she said, "I want to connect with you, and I'm going to have, my partner connect with you also," because she goes, "I just want some answers. I am at the point," she goes, "I just need some answers." And I'm finding that people are just they're not satisfied with the information that they're getting in other ways, or they're just, just wanting information, wanting additional guidance,
And
wanting some
taking good
clarity.
help with their golf grip too.
Right, right. I am having people that come to me for that too, but yeah, it was interesting. But, and actually that's what I do too is, when I get out of the golf course, there's so much golf out there. There's such a metaphor for golf and life,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, don't focus on that water, focus where I really want the ball to go, focus forward, focus ahead. So that's why I actually enjoy the golf part. But I think it's just so interesting that the people we come across who are just like, once they find out what you do, it's like, "Oh my gosh, I have to talk to you."
Mm. I knew when this year was coming, when it turned to 2026, I said, "This is gonna be job security this year," because I felt people are really gonna go kinda crazy this year, and the other thing too, as far as mental health with people, a lot of people and I'm not putting therapists down, but a lot have been complaining to me that it really hasn't helped them.
Yeah.
And that I have been key to helping them because I don't sugarcoat it. I get right to the heart of the matter. I mean, there's some situations, especially with relationships. So if I'm doing a relationship reading for some couple, I don't just look at them. I'm looking at their family tree. I'm looking at their history. I want to know also spiritually, is this an old soul, a new soul? Because I have also remarked with the client about things that they might not be seeing with this person. There
Mhm.
could be undetected health issues going on with a partner, but I find in therapy situations, they're just kind of holding your hand.
Yeah. Isn't that true? And I'm very clear what I'm doing. I said, I am not a therapist. I'm not a
Yeah.
psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't do anything for that way, but and not to diminish the work that they do. But I said, I am here to give you some clarity, as I'm sure you are. You do too. I know you do because I've had readings with you. You give them information they couldn't get elsewhere, right? And it's not the hand holding type either.
Yeah, and it can help even if you have no information. If somebody comes to me, "Well, I meet, Prince Charming, uh, this year," and I'm like, "No," but I said, it's not written that you can't, but you haven't set that in motion." They kind of think sometimes that, yeah, sometimes I can see somebody coming about, but if there's nothing that they've done to set it in motion, like if they don't wanna leave their house ever and, wanna meet people, it's just not gonna happen.
Right.
So they have to change, and then all of a sudden, if they start changing, that sends a signal to, "I'm seeing somebody now for you."
Mhm.
So it's hard to explain to people this kind of work because it's complicated. It's complicated. Just like mediums. They will see people well, sometimes with mediums, the person whom they're working with will be blocking what they're seeing.
Mm,
And then I've seen people, get real nasty at these mediums. "Oh, they're a hoax," and
right?
I'm like, "The problem's you, not them." Like, you gotta change your attitude and, listen to what they suggest for you. I would imagine it's the same with people who do cards and stuff like that. they'll get people who are probably blocked as well and
Exactly.
perform their work. But like you were saying with that lady who was playing golf, yes, you're gonna get a lot more. I think one day you'll probably even do some social groups, but I think seems like a lot of people you meet may not be from where you live too.
That's so interesting that you mentioned that because I live on a resort area here. So,
Okay.
yes, there's a
Like
lot of people around. There's the hotels right across the street from me, and I'm going to come across people. And I thought about, maybe I should be reaching out to or putting myself out there that people come to Hawaii for a reason. And when they do, they're opening up to experiences and information. They want something different. And it occurred to me that I should be just offering this service as another type of a vacation experience for them to take home with them, some additional information.
Yeah, that would be very good. Hawaii has its own energy. The people there, it's the people that aren't there. It's the spirits of the islands can go either way. It can be, well, I've known some people who passed away over there just randomly. There are some places I'm superstitious about. And, you know, I think about what's his face? The martial arts expert, the longtime actor who did all these fabulous shows, who just died over in Kauai.
I can't think
Yeah,
of it.
his name will come to me, but he was in great shape. No reason to pass and passed just out of the blue. They said he was even talking on the phone, laughing, with somebody.
Wow.
I've seen events like that happen in the islands, and I'm not saying they're negative. I'm saying there's just some powerful places and forces at work there,
Absolutely.
and you must know
110%.
that.
I do, and I visited some when I first stepped off the plane, the first time I arrived in Hawaii, I was sent over here for the military to have a 3-year tour here. I'd never been to Hawaii before, and I stepped off the plane by myself, and I remember hearing and sensing "Welcome home."
That's interesting. Yeah,
And
I feel you belong there.
I do, I love
Spirit.
it. I love it. I mean, for those who don't know me and are listening, I'm a Kansas girl. I was born and raised on a farm in Kansas,
Mm,
and then to get sent here to Hawaii and just immediately fell in love with the place because it felt so much at home for me. So I feel that I've had a life here before or lives here before, but talking about the different places that feel spiritual or, maybe stay away from this, they absolutely exist. You can feel the different energetics on different islands and in
yeah.
different places.
Uh, you don't have a dog named Toto, right?
No, I left him in Kansas.
Yeah, it's very it's so I was recently out west, went through Arizona, New Mexico,
Oh, yeah.
and it's such a powerful energy. But a lot of people who end up moving there because they're retiring, they're getting away from the north and they want to go buy a house in the sun. There's a lot of people there and not always life doesn't always go too well for them because the energy of the place is still inhabited by the Native Americans.
Mm.
Very, very powerful. I just sensed it everywhere. And when I go there, I always kind of send good vibrations their way, subconsciously. But it's very similar to Hawaii in the fact that you've got a very old spirit culture there. And if you're not really in tune with it, well, it'll make you in tune with it.
Yeah, they'll make it or they'll say, "You don't belong here."
Yeah, you'll blow.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned about being in the Southwest because I went to Sedona. I've been always it was one of those bucket list places. I just felt called to go there, so I took myself on a, by myself trip to Sedona last fall.
Yeah.
Talk about the energy again. Yes, different from Hawaii. I mean, I could feel it very distinct, but it was a very, very strong energy that I could feel sitting among the red rocks there. Incredible.
Yeah, it was really it's pretty intense, and I get a lot of clients that live out there who got some really heavy life problems going on, and I'll tell them usually what to do, but They're not kind of in tune with the landscape so much. They bring their world there, but they
Yeah.
to there. So, yeah, Hawaii's the same way. I had really close friends in Hawaii. They called me kind of a native, type because I just wasn't your typical.
Yeah, I can see you fitting in very easily here.
Yeah, yeah.
I
We all kind of shared similarities to each other, and these were guys born in Hawaii, and yeah, we were friends. There was a famous surfer there, Buttons Kalani. He was a famous surfer from, I think he was from Oahu. Anyway,
okay.
all the old surfers know him. And anyway, we were friends at one point, and he was a funny, crazy guy. And he even gave me a surfboard.
How
Yeah.
nice.
It was pretty cool. And so I got along with people very well there. But all the islands are kind of different where you are too.
Yes, every single one of them has a unique energy. I just took a trip to the Big Island a couple of months ago, again, after we had had our last conversation. Anyway, yeah, it was a month or so ago. I haven't visited the Big Island. That's where all the volcanic activity is occurring. And I hadn't
Yeah.
been there in probably 20 years. But to go back there as soon as you land, because my brother and I went over for a visit and we stayed right there where in Volcano National Park. We stayed right there. You could just feel that energy just coming up from the earth.
Yeah,
Another
I can
amazing
feel from here.
experience there.
Wow. So what else? What else should we
Before we wind up, I just wanted to ask you, is there any kind of information that you want to share or, anything that's maybe coming for you that you want to share for the listeners or for me personally? But anyway, anything that you feel that is a message that is wanting to be shared.
nothing in general. I think I've kind of given some of the my own personal warnings about this
Yeah.
year as being it's going to be a very active year. In the Chinese zodiac, it's the fire horse year, so it's double fire, sign of the horse is fire, and also it's fire. It's also yang fire as opposed to yin fire. So I am superstitious about that because it really will show the activity of this year. If you're turning 60 this year, it's probably going to be a pretty intense year for you. So just stay in a hot tub in a nice place and just relax for the rest of the year. Don't do too much. But for the earth, it just we'll have to play it by ear what's going on. It's not a good year to be in a war. That any year's not a good year to be in a war, but I'm afraid of what's going on. I don't have an opinion either way, but I think a couple years ago or a year ago, I said it was going to be a 3-year war. So it won't be over for a while. Things may get worse before better towards this fall with that. I don't know, but keep up what you're doing because you're discovering a whole new thing it's very interesting. I think you're gonna write about some of this too eventually.
That's so interesting that you mentioned that because one of the bio lines that I have now on my Facebook page is that as also a visual storyteller.
Okay.
Because that's what I realized that, again, capturing it from my photographic eye, I actually always wanted to be a photojournalist. Going into college,
Wow.
that's what I wanted to do, and then I realized there was probably not a whole lot of money in that. So, I didn't do it, but that has always the writing and the imagery combination has always been a passion of mine. So I get to kinda put those things out there and use them as life lessons or guidance for people. So that's interesting that you mentioned about the writing because that is a passion of mine.
Yeah. Well, I think that will come eventually. I started writing a book and I'm just so bad at writing stuff, even if I have to pay a bill online, it's just like such deal. But, you know, people have told me an easier way of trying to do it by audio. And I just have to discipline myself. But I think it would be a pretty good book. I think it's about understanding psychic work and going right into the heart of the matter and how I do it, what comes to me I didn't want it to be a book about myself. I wanted it to be about the work, but unfortunately, you can't do it without, unless they understand you.
Right. That's so true.
I mean,
That's
I've
so
had a
true.
really crazy life from one journey after another, and, so it has to be included because it's kind of like how we developed what we're doing.
Exactly right. That's so true.
So
I think yeah, you have to tell your story.
it's but everything kinda comes into play, and once you start doing this work, you're gonna say, "Hmm, it's kinda weird because all these episodes in my life have kind of lended the way to this path."
I think that's so true for everyone. And I think that's why I enjoy what I'm doing is also helping take people back and looking at this. This is where you were because a lot of past life information is shown to me when I'm doing readings for people, but then it makes sense for how they've been developing where they are now and where they're potentially headed or what's at least an opportunity for them or why they're being called into a certain direction. So I think, yeah, you have to look at where you've been and acknowledge that and write about it.
I talk to people about, careers quite a bit. That's been on the forefront of people, and talk to a couple people who, work for companies. They're very highly skilled at what they do, and then all of a sudden the economy, kinda crumbles and their job's gone.
Yep.
Or they turn 60 something and, like, all of a sudden the company's like, "No, we need somebody younger." Okay. This happens all the time. And one of the frustrations is people keep trying to get the same type
The
of job.
same thing. Yes.
They keep trying. And I'm like, look, you have to understand that we have a set of skills, whether it's on paper or not. And the society will dictate what it needs from you. So if, let's say, you did banking for years and years, but all of a sudden people need their pictures taken and all this, you've got all this work, but you know how to do it. So society or the world is telling you that we need you for this. So many people that they
Yeah.
have to do a certain thing and they have a lot more skills than they think they do. It's just relearning. But I've seen a lot of people going through big work transitions recently.
You know what? That's interesting you say that as well, because several of the readings that I've done, people are asking about career transitions because they were facing potential cuts at their work. And I remember one woman, she was in IT. She'd done that kind of, that kind of analytical type of work for years. And so she was concerned, or what should she be maybe thinking about, or what kind of job should she be looking, or will there be another job offered to her? And I finally just asked her, I said, "I'm getting something around a lot of color and a creative passion that you've got." I said, do you do anything artistic?" And she said, "I paint." And she said, "I've been thinking about getting back to painting
Mm,
again."
yeah,
And I said, "I think you need to explore that a little bit better."
yeah.
Well, comes to pass a few months later, she actually did get let go, but now what is she doing? She's selling her artwork in a gallery in Kansas City.
Well, I've spoken to people like that, and even people who just had a knack for cooking, and they made one recipe, and all of a sudden they made that like into a business.
Right.
But the economy is really in a very well, let's just say it's always hard, but the corporate world is worse.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of people are starting their own businesses now.
Yeah, and I think that's great, especially if they can do it with something that they're meant to do or that's in alignment with what they are really wanting to do, but they've been just denying it because somebody has told them previously, "Well, you can't make any money at that, and that's not the way you should go," and yada yada. But when
Yeah.
people can stand up and kind of step into their own power and say, "You know what? I'm gonna do this," and it turns out marvelously for them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I always tell people, I really wanted to become a male model, but the only magazine I could find was National Lampoon. So I kind of gave that up. Yeah.
oh my goodness.
Uh,
Oh gosh. Well, Todd, this has been marvelous. I always enjoy having you on the podcast, and I know our listeners always get a lot of information from our conversations. So as we wrap things up, I want just want to thank you. But again, so that listeners, I'll put this in the show notes, but just so that listeners know how to connect with you, can you give us your website or what? How is it that you would like people to
Well,
connect
just
with
look
you?
up my name. So Todd Segal, Segal, or Segal, as they say here. And it's toddsegalpsychic.com. They can find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page there. I've had a long time and a YouTube channel. I think it says Todd Segal Psychic. So, but it's really easy. You just go on the internet and you put Todd Segal Psychic, and my website comes right up. Yeah.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah, and we'll have this obviously through my podcast, and then we'll also put this on YouTube so people can find it. If they want to see what we really look like, they can do that as
I
well.
know, I always get down on myself about video. I'm like, you're like, "There's no light in there." I'm like, "Perfect."
I know. Yeah, for those of you who are watching or listening, I told Todd, I said, "Todd, I can't see your face. You gotta move to a place where there's more light because it's just like this Phantom of the Opera
Yeah,
persona."
perfect, perfect, that's what
So
I
we're laughing.
I should have one of those little edit systems, where they change the voice and then they change the face.
Oh my gosh. Well, hey, this has been delightful. Again, I really, really enjoy this and thank you for sharing your time and talents
Oh,
through this.
no, no, I love talking about this stuff with you. I think it is really neat that you're doing more of this, because I think I originally saw you doing something similar to this and helping people. It's been years now, but
Yeah.
I saw you in that capacity, even though there were so many other things knocking on your door you wanted to do. I did feel that you were gonna be helping people, and we need a lot of help out there, so
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for we've been together, I've been having readings from you for 5, maybe 6 years now. So and every one of them has been amazing. And so we go a long way back. And yes, you're right. At that time when we first connected, I was nowhere near this. This was, it was an ability I knew I had, and a talent I knew I could do, but it wasn't anything I was putting out there. And now I feel so comfortable stepping into it. So thank you for that.
I think it's the right time in your life to do it too. And yeah, it is kind of scary to think how long I've been doing this, because a lot of people write to me who I predicted babies for, like, a long time ago, and now they're like teenagers, like graduating high school, and I'm like, "Oh my god," it's like time went by,
Right?
and I didn't age. I mean, I stayed the same.
Yeah, we stayed the same. I mean, you still look just like when I first met you, and same here. I look at myself and I thought, okay, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not getting older. Not next month when my
No,
birthday
no,
is.
no.
No, no.
You
Just,
never
it's just
will.
stay,
You
just gonna stay.
you'll never have to go to the plastic surgeon again.
Thank you. I hope not. Well, once again, thank you, Todd. I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone who's listening, and feel free to send in comments or questions to us that we are happy to answer for you. And until next time, hope there will be another next time, Todd. I enjoy these
Oh, no,
conversations,
thank you.
and we look forward to doing this again. So, wishing you a great day, and for everyone listening, hoping you're having a great week as well. Aloha.
Okay. Well, you take care,
All right. Thank
and
you.
everybody out there.
Thank you. All right. Aloha.